between the players on those teams, it's very real. Very real.
Well, you saw it on the... I mean, that was another nasty, nasty series.
Yeah.
In a lot of ways. And by the way, as the Panthers have remained in celebration mode, like, remember last year it was kind of a, oh, how cool is that? Like, they've brought the Stanley Cup to the Elbow Room. Hey, did you hear? They brought the Stanley Cup to the Elbow Room. Everybody in South Florida knew where to be the moment the final horn sounded in Game 6.
Yes,
that
they
bar
did.
Was jammed right away.
A lot of that stuff was really good, like Barkov, the ring, doing the doorbell.
Yes, at 5 a.m.
And the guy saying last year you didn't bring it by, this time bring it by. So Barkov comes at 5 a.m.
Yeah.
I'll tell you something else too, Kyle. I forgot to mention this last pod, but just talking to a couple of the Panthers on and off the ice after that game, they're not going to let up. They're going for 3.
It's amazing.
Like that organization, they're like, okay, we won 2. It's hard to win 2. Other teams have won 2. No one's won 3 in a row since the Islanders, right?
Yeah, like not even the Oilers in the 80s did 3.
That's 40 years ago.
Well, and we talked about it early in the playoffs, Elliotte, like just with how that team prioritizes rest and recovery and just the group that they have there already. I know they've got some big decisions to make and trying to bring some guys back if that's the road they want to go. But I heard you on the radio, I can't remember where it was, made the interesting point where, you look at a guy like Seth Jones and how many other players in the league were looking at him going, well, I could be that guy. I could be the player that maybe my situation isn't the best where I am right now, but I could be part of a solution in a place like Florida for when they go to find the next version of Seth Jones or a Brad Marchand or somebody of that ilk next year when they try to do it a third time. So,
Kyle, Bill Zito, after they won the Cup, he says, I'm going to try to keep everybody, right? And, sometimes I think that's the emotion of the moment. What are you going to say? You've just won the Stanley Cup. All these players have gone through a wall for you. Well, we're going to get rid of 2 of them. It's a tough thing to say. So I could totally understand. I have no doubt they're going to try. And like we talked about with Edmonton, the cap's going up. It's not like all these teams had to deal with 4 and 5 years ago, or even 2 years ago, where the cap was flat. So it's an advantage at this time for the Oilers and the Panthers as to compared to other teams who competed for the Stanley Cup in recent years. I would not underestimate the Panthers, but I gotta think 2 out of 3 potentially is more likely. Bennett, I've talked before, 8 times 7 for Hagee was the offer. And I think Bennett is going to bend. He's going to take less money than he can get on the open market to stay with the Panthers. I think this is one where the Panthers have to bend a bit, and I expect they are going to bend a little bit. I'm going to go with this is going to get done until somebody convinces me it's actually not going to get done. Remember last year, Reinhart got signed right before midnight on June 30th. So I guess it could always come down to the wire. Marchand, it's such a tough one because I said at the beginning of the Cup final he was getting a 3 times 8. And now I've had people telling me, you're going to be off on this one. He's going to get more. And maybe the magic number, like that's $24 million. Maybe he gets more than that in another structure, or maybe he gets more than 3 times 8 AV. But he did nothing in the Stanley Cup final to hurt his worth. And I think Utah's in there. I think Toronto is going to be in there. And I think there's going to be other teams there as well. And it's going to be very interesting to see where Florida, an analytically heavy team, feels that it can go here. So I think that's going to be fascinating. Ekblad, Kyle, I don't know how much they've really negotiated with him. I think they did last year around the draft free agency. It was not anything that Ekblad was willing to do. I have to think that as important to him as anything is term. He's 29 years old, and his body's been through a heck of a lot. So I've heard the term is going to be a big one for him. And this is a big opportunity for him, too, because he played the best hockey of his life. And I think there's going to be a lot of interest in him. And, the other name we shouldn't forget, Nate Schmidt. Nate Schmidt had a great year and a great playoff and a great final. I think them keeping him depends on what happens around him. But I'm sure they'd love to keep him. And if they don't, I could see a lot of teams running at him as a player.
Right. Well, I think it's 2 years in a row now, right? They brought in a defenseman coming off being bought out and have helped kind of rebuild them, right? It was Ekman Larsson 2 years ago, and he ends up signing for a good chunk of time in Toronto, and then they bring in Nate Schmidt. Great success. I mean, again, it speaks to the program they've got there in Florida, also to the work of Sylvain Lefebvre, who runs the defense there with the Panthers, along with Paul Maurice as the head coach. Nate Schmidt's
but I'm glad you mentioned that, because Maurice gets a lot of the credit, and he deserves it. He's the head coach, but their assistant coaches, like Sylvain Lefebvre, remember when he got traded there, we talked about how, Seth Jones would benefit from him. Mm-hmm. He did. Rob Tallis, very patient over the years in dealing with Sergei Bobrovsky. And, he's done a great job earning, he's the guy who convinced Bobrovsky that in the regular season, you can play a bit less. And it's made Bobrovsky a better goalie. And I think we should also recognize a person who someone joked was Paul Maurice's brain. That's Jamie Compon.
Oh,
now
yeah.
a 4-time Stanley Cup champion.
Yeah, really good.
Kings in 12, Blackhawks in 13, and now 2 in a row with the Panthers. And like Jamie Compon, man, he played when he was a player, and this was in the 90s. He played in the ECHL. He looks like he could still play. He is ripped.
Yes, on the ice. He's like, there's something with the routines in the morning where like he'll be on the ice helping to skate, and then he'll come off, and next thing you know, the room will open to the media, and he's sitting with a player at their stall. He's got the laptop out looking at video, and you're like, okay, now he's finished on the ice. He's doing video stuff with players. And then you go leave the dressing room again, and he's back out on the ice, like working with the scratches.